Greetings, everyone. My name is Darren Keim. This is the Naked Eye Media Podcast, and this episode is episode number 1 called How to Think Clearly in the Year 2020. It will be the first episode in a series of podcasts in which I want to talk about what that means to think clearly. It's going to involve critical thinking. It's going to involve pushing your mind, becoming open-minded, and expanding the way that you think, removing thoughts and the ways that you have thought in the past to achieve a better understanding of how to look at life and reality and improve your current mindset to something better. I want to start off with a quote. A wise man once said, "The eye is the lamp of the body. If your vision is clear, your whole body will be full of light. If your eyes are bad, your whole body will be full of darkness. Therefore, take care that the light within you is not darkness." Now, if you look at what this quote is saying, one thing that is important to understand, the author is not talking about your physical eyes. He's not talking about what you physically see. He's talking about how you perceive things on a deeper level. How do you perceive reality? Because if you're perceiving it correctly, if your vision is clear, you will be perceiving something that will provide light for your body. However, if you're perceiving it incorrectly, then it will cause darkness within you. It will cause energy that you feel that throws everything off. Thinking clearly causes positive feelings to develop within you to where you can literally feel them in your physical body versus when you are thinking incorrectly, and it can cause a negative energy force within you that will cause you to feel that based off of the way that you're looking at things. It's, in 2020, it's really hard to see clearly. We have a lot of different voices coming at us. We have a lot of different things trying to get our attention. Whether it be through, there's various religions, there's various cultures, there's various media sources, there's various friends, family, educational systems. Maybe it's even thoughts inside of your own mind and impressions or assumptions that you've built up. All of these things have been competing with you, and whatever you've given your most attention to over time, it will develop a narrative for you that feels real. And you begin to look at everything through that particular lens. This particular lens can come with a lot of assumptions and expectations that may or may not be even true, but they are your, as to put the quote, they are your source of light in which you are basing your outlook of motivation for reality off of. And that can be sometimes motivated by negative things or by positive things. I want to stop there. We're going to go a little bit further in a second, diving into this. But first, I want to say, subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't. I'm glad to have you guys on board. I would love to have you around for the future. If you like these episodes, go to youtube.com, go to Darren Keim, hit subscribe, join up and get notifications for future episodes. This is going to be on a podcast. It's called the Naked Eye Media Podcast. You can find it on the Anchor app, which you can download in Google Play, Apple Store, and you can hear it on supposedly on those sources. That's what they say. This is my first official episode. I have done one in the past, and what I noticed was that, I don't know if it's due to circulation or what, but it was just up on the Anchor app and nothing else. That's cool, though. Download the Anchor app and you can hear it there. All right, going forward, I want to give you another quote. A foolish man thinks he knows everything. A wise man knows he doesn't. That's a quote by an author named Amanda Hocking. Just for props to her for writing it, because it's a really good quote. I've got another one. It's called, "Those who think they have knowledge do not yet know as they ought to know. And that is a quote by the Apostle Paul written in 1 Corinthians chapter 8, verse 2. Now, both of those quotes are referring to knowledge. They are saying that if you have knowledge and you think too highly of that knowledge, then you are actually limiting yourself from being a wise person. So there's not anything wrong with having knowledge, but it can be self-limiting if you think that that knowledge that you possess is all that you need to know. In other words, like these quotes say, if you think you know everything, if you think that you have knowledge, then there's something else that you need to know, even if you don't understand it. What this requires then is for you to step back and simply say, wait, okay, I don't know everything. Even though you might have a lot of knowledge, don't allow that knowledge to limit you. So it's important to step back and go forward from an open-minded perspective so that way, number one, you can gain knowledge that's outside of your own knowledge on something. If you are so closed-minded that you think you know everything, you're not listening to all of the knowledge that is also out there that could help you to better yourself. Secondly, you're not able to update your own knowledge because you think that you have it all already. Both of these things are self-limiting points of view. They are not thinking clearly. They're actually preventing you from thinking clearly. So it's important to gain an open-minded posture in your mind. Being able to be open is something that you can learn. It's an open stance in which you are comfortable with not having to be right about everything. And trust me, that's something that I've struggled with, and I still struggle with it a lot. Becoming open to saying, hey, whoa, let me step back. I don't know everything. And there's probably something that anyone that I talk to, I can learn something from them. Let me give you a little bit of background on on my situation. For years, I would say close to 10 years, I struggled real hard with depression, anxiety, paranoia, insecurity, a bunch of negative emotions. These emotions were built off of assumptions and expectations that I had about reality. Now, were these assumptions and expectations, were they based off of fact? No, I didn't know that for certain. But I was allowing myself to believe things. My outlook, my vision was believing things that were causing me to be depressed. So in other words, I was depressed because I was assuming that my life was trash and it wasn't going to get any better. That was what I was assuming. So it was causing me to be depressed, and I felt it. I was anxious because I didn't know when the next thing would happen that would add to my shitty situation in life. And I was paranoid because when's it going to happen? It could happen at any point, in any time. These things all caused me to live in a state of energy that was negative. And if you've been depressed or anxious or nervous or worried or insecure, you understand that these things, they do have an energy force to them, and you feel it. It's similar to the way that when we are hungry or when we are thirsty, there's a feeling to it. We all know what that feeling is, but there's not really a way to describe that with words. We just know that it's something that's there, and we felt it before. We've been there. If you are thinking thoughts that are causing these negative emotions and these negative energy forces to exist in you, that can be a really dark reality to live in. And that's what I lived in for years and years. It was not fun. It got to the point where, seriously, I was on medication for it. And what it required for me was I had to understand that those were all assumptions and expectations that were not proven to be true or the fact for why things were the way that they were. I had to understand that my narrative on reality, in which I was becoming depressed because I believed it, might not even be the case. That there are other possible explanations that can accurately describe what's going on. So I had to basically clear my mind and say, all right, I don't know everything. I need to step back. I need to step back and say that, okay, what I've been believing, I might be completely wrong about that. I need to be open-minded, because for all I know, who's to say that something great isn't just around the corner? Who's to say that the next day isn't going to change things and provide something that teaches me something new about life that changes my outlook on it? And what I came to realize actually was what changed it for me to start bringing joy, peace, hope, happiness, motivation in the correct direction, and actual light into my life was simply shifting my mindset. Circumstances can stay the same, but if you shift your mindset, that's what determines how they feel to you and how you will react and move forward. So clearing the past way of that I was thinking, I knew that I had to do that because it wasn't working for me. I had to clear my past way of thinking to build a new and a better way to see reality. So I've got a rule that this kind of led me to. Now, this rule is a great way to help you if you are struggling with negative energy or thought patterns, or you are just not feeling it in life and something is off and you don't know how to get out of it. Here's a great way to find out if you've been assuming things that may not be true about yourself or about your situation. Ask this question, or make this statement. Rule number 1, don't assume that your interpretation of something is always correct. Nice and simple. Don't assume that your interpretation of something is always correct. We all have interpretations on things. A lot of times they are knee-jerk reactions, or they've been built into us from years of following a narrative about life that we've built in our minds based off of things that we've heard from friends, family, media, culture, religion. All of these different things can all add in. They all do add in, and they shape your reality. But we do not know for certain what is true. In most cases, we know very little for certain. And it goes back to that quote. A foolish man thinks he knows everything. A wise man knows that he doesn't. Step back, understand, hold up. It's okay to say, I don't know everything. It's okay to be in a position of openness. It doesn't mean that you're less. It means that you're more. It means that you're stronger, that you're able to be comfortable in that state where it might feel vulnerable or exposed to someone else. You don't have to be that person. You can say, I'm okay being there because it's going to take me. That's the foundation to get me to a better spot. So, rule number 1, don't assume that your interpretation of something is always correct. I had a math teacher. His name was Mr. Grifka in high school. And he had this statement that he would say to us, don't assume. If you assume, it makes an ass out of you and me. Now, he would say this, he would drill this into us because in math, once you get into the higher levels of it, it's basically to work your way through the problem. You have to do a number of steps absolutely correctly all the way to the end of it so that you can make sure you get the right answer. So if you're assuming that you're right without testing it, without proving your work all the way up to it, what will happen is you'll get to a spot and you'll realize that you can't go any further because something is off in your numbers. One of the steps in trying to get to the solution, the true answer, is off. you're doing something that you thought or you assumed was the correct step, but you didn't analyze it. You didn't critically look at it to find out, okay, what's off here? That's what assumption will do for you in life too. Assuming things that may or may not be true, and yet we build our whole worldview off of them. The narrative that fuels us, that gives us our energy, whether positive or negative. I've got a question that you can ask yourself that can really help to cut through all of this noise to help you determine pretty quickly if you're assuming something that maybe is true or maybe it's not. It can help you kind of open your mind to find out. And it's actually the question that I've got written up there on the board. I'll read that question for you. Is it reasonable to conclude that this is the only possible explanation that accurately describes the situation at hand? So, in any situation that you're going through, a lot of times we have that knee-jerk response of we think that we know what's going on, or we don't really challenge this assumption of what we think that we know is really going on. And one thing about our culture, in our society, our society has conditioned us almost right now in today's day and age in 2020, almost to think the worst about people when we see them do something, and we attribute the worst case scenario to them, and we just assume that that's what it is. So I've got actually I've got 3 examples that I want to give you that can kind of help you cut through and understand what I'm talking about, that there is an initial response that you'll think something initially without knowing for certain that it's true, based off of a certain event that takes place that you observe. And unless you challenge it, unless you step back and say, wait a minute, hold on, is this the only possible, is it reasonable to conclude that this is the only possible explanation that describes what the situation is at hand? The first example, all right, you've got a black man on an elevator. The elevator doors open. The black man sees a white man waiting. The white man appears ready to get on the elevator, sees the black man, and then stops, breaks eye contact, and keeps waiting. Elevator doors go close, and that's all that the black man knows. That's all that he sees. White boy not getting on the elevator after making eye contact with him. What's your initial, immediate response about the white guy that didn't get on the elevator? For me, that's pretty easy to initially think like, oh, what's up with this white guy? Is he racist? Like, is he afraid of getting on the elevator with somebody that has a different skin color from his own? That's not the answer. There's a much easier answer to why the white boy didn't get on the elevator with the black guy. The reason I know that is because this actually happened to me. So, context. I was at a hospital working with a patient, and there was multiple floors, 6 floors, multiple elevators, 2 or 3 elevators next to each other. I'm standing there to get on and waiting, and then the doors open. There's the black guy standing by himself in the elevator, and I start to walk towards the elevator to get on. I see him, but then I stop and I look, break eye contact with him and look, and I notice that the arrow of the elevator that he's on is pointing down. I'm going up. That's the end of the explanation. That's what it was. It wasn't anything racist. It wasn't anything nefarious or evil. It was an alternative explanation that was not the knee-jerk reaction that accurately described the situation at hand, and it had nothing to do with something bad. So the reason why I remembered that was because it made me think, what was this poor black guy thinking? He sees me and he sees me walking towards him, and then I just abruptly stop and I look away, and then I just stand there. I hope that he didn't think that was because I saw the color of his skin and thought that, oh, I'm not getting on the elevator with this black guy. That would be a racist thing to do. And it just made me think like how easily it can be that something honest or innocent can happen, and who knows how somebody might take it. So that's example number one. Example number two, there's a medical worker who enters into an office. He enters into the office and he smells like smoke. The secretary is sitting there. What does she think that he just did? Obviously, it sounds a lot like that he was probably out smoking. And if you're a medical worker, you're technically, I guess they frown upon that. So anyways, I walk in. That's right, it was me. I walk in and I knew that I smelled like smoke. I didn't smoke. What actually happened was I was at a patient's house who was a chain smoker. The smoke saturated through my clothes. I don't know if you've ever been in a place like that where the person smokes nonstop and it just absolutely infiltrates your clothes. So I had smoke just in my clothes and I knew it was like radiating off of me. But that's an alternate explanation to explain something that maybe wasn't what the initial thought would have been, that somebody may have assumed about me. So that's example number two. Example number three. A man throws what appears to be papers out of his car onto the grass at a restaurant. So if I saw that, I'd be like, the dude's littering. He went through the drive-thru, got his sandwich, and just took his papers and just tossed them out the window. Nope. That happened to me. This was me again also. What actually happened was I go to Jack in the Box. I get the loaded breakfast burrito, and I love it because it's full of protein, but it's got this massive tortilla shell that wraps around it that is literally twice the size of what you've got inside of the tortilla. So I always, when I go there, I have to unwrap it and then literally like peel away a solid half of this tortilla shell and then peel it off of the ends. You got like a huge strip here, a strip here, and a strip here. So that way I'm not just filling myself with useless carbs as I think that they are. And then I just took my tortilla shell and I tossed it out the window as I'm leaving. I know people saw me and they probably thought that I littered, but I just didn't care because I knew that I wasn't. And technically, though it looks flat, white, it looks like paper, what it is it's actually kind of food, and the ants, the insects were probably loving it, the birds were loving it, stray cats, dogs, I just made their day. Also, it's biodegradable, so it probably like did some kind of fertilizing for the soil anyways. Anyways, something that appears to be bad ends up being good, or not as bad, we'll put it like that. Those are a few examples of how when we ask that question, it can reveal a lot to us about whether or not we're truly following reality. Again, that question is it reasonable to conclude that this is the only possible explanation that accurately describes the situation at hand? So think about this when you're talking with somebody and they're, I don't know, instead of assuming the worst about them, if you're observing things about them. Think about it when you're watching the news and the news says something, but you don't know all of the facts at hand. Think about that. Is it reasonable to assume that there might be more to it? All right, I want to go into the next section of what I consider to be the logical fallacies. That first part, if you're assuming things that you don't know for certain, that's a logical fallacy. I want to describe what logical fallacies are. Let's break it down. So logic is something logical. Something logical means it's based on reason and sound ideas. In other words, it's thought out with mathematical precision and removed from emotion. And that is according to vocabulary.com. A fallacy is a mistaken belief, especially one based on an unsound argument. So a logical fallacy is basically something that you think is logical and that it makes sense, but it's incorrect. It's a fallacy of logic. But we do these things all the time. So I found an incredible website that really helps a lot in describing some of these logical fallacies. It's called yourlogicalfallacyis.com. If you go there, there's 24 different logical fallacies. You can read through them. We do this stuff all the time. And we also see it in our culture a lot in our media where they use logical fallacies, whether it be to incite emotion within us or whether it be to lead us to believe a certain thing while not actually proving it. Let me give you one of the best examples of that. Probably the best one that I think that we will all recognize happens on a regular basis is one called ad hominem. Ad hominem is basically a character attack. It's an attempt to discredit someone's argument by asserting a flaw in their character. Now, I would say the most basic example of that is in life. Let's think of the worst person ever. So let's say Hitler. Let's say Adolf Hitler, he says 2 + 2 is 4. Now, if he says that to someone, if someone is attacking him ad hominem in an argument, they would say, why should I listen to you about 2 + 2 equaling 4 when you've done all of these terrible things? Last I checked, the first half of the 1940s was a giant world war because of you. You think I'm going to listen to you when you say 2 + 2 = 4? What they're doing is they're discrediting him, but they haven't discredited what he just said. So the point is, even Adolf Hitler, or Jesus Christ, Mother Teresa, they can all say 2 + 2 = 4. They're all correct about that. 2 + 2 = 4, and attacking the character of the person that is delivering the truth does not address the actual argument, the truth claim that they are making. So we see this all through politics. We see it through religion. There's a really good example of someone using ad hominem and a couple other ones. There's a man, his name is Jordan Peterson. He's an author. He wrote a book called The 12 Rules for Life. He's extremely intelligent. He's a psychologist, and he is on a show with a woman named Kathy Newman. She's from Great Britain, I believe, and you'll have to check it out. Just go to YouTube and watch it. She tries to lay into him with literally every logical fallacy in the book. She's attacking him with ad hominem. She's attacking him with, there's a few other ones. One is called a straw man argument. There's one called genetic. All of these are on yourlogicalfallacyis.com. And I will talk about more of those. There's one other one that I want to talk about real quick today. And then in future episodes, I'm going to dive into a few of the other ones. The other one that I want to talk about, which I'm pretty sure she attacks him on this basis as well, is called the appeal to authority. In the appeal to authority, essentially, just because someone is an expert, that doesn't mean that they are always correct. So a good example of that right now, as we are going through the coronavirus pandemic, we are seeing different doctors say things. And instead of maybe analyzing what they are saying, we are assuming that because they are doctors and they are the experts of their field, that they are always correct. Let me break this down into a more everyday example. So I watch football, as many people do, because football is like the best sport. So anyways, all of the analysts that are analyzing the game, whether it be before, whether it be during, as the play-by-play commentators, these guys are all experts in their field. They are all usually former NFL players. So that's why you've got Troy Aikman, you've got Tony Romo, you've got Trent Dilfer. These are all quarterbacks. And then you've got different different positions. That Jason Witten was doing it for a while. But these are guys who, Keyshawn Johnson, Michael Irvin, those are a couple other ones. These guys will break down the game, and they will often have a competition with each other throughout the season of guessing who's going to beat who. And if you look, a lot of times at the end of the season, there will be some of them that have like straight up losing records. Now, what that means is that, yes, they are experts in their field. It doesn't mean they get everything right. But let me say that with a word of caution. If I'm getting ready to watch a game and I really want to know someone's input on it, even though the experts are wrong sometimes, I would still rather hear what an expert has to say. I would rather ask Keyshawn Johnson or Troy Aikman what his opinion is on who he thinks is going to win the game. The reason I want to know that is because he's an expert and he knows a lot more than I do as Joe Schmo. So the reason I brought up these two arguments, ad hominem and appeal to authority. The ad hominem, this is something like all logical fallacies, you can take it back and you can apply it to yourself to see if you've been using it on yourself. Have you been looking at your character as a human and your track record, whatever that might be? Maybe it's good or maybe it's not good. Maybe you are not proud of anything that you've done. And maybe because you're so ashamed of what you've done in the past or who you are that you think you are now because of your past, you say, I'm not capable of saying or doing anything of value. Why should I think that I can do anything when I've done A, B, and C? Just look at who I am. That is a logical fallacy that you are using on yourself. Because just like how experts aren't always correct, Joe Schmo isn't always wrong just because he's not an expert. So you, even though maybe you're not good at this set of standards that you've created for yourself that you think you need to live up to, which that right there, that's a logical fallacy because you're assuming that you need these things in order for happiness. But if you can't do that and you've got a bad track record, that doesn't mean that you aren't capable of doing great things and of saying things or acting in a way that can impact others and impact yourself to lead you to a better state of existence. So the appeal to authority, you've got people that they know what is the best. Let me say this to you guys. I don't care who you are. There's a solid chance that there is something in life that you are an expert at, even though you don't realize that you are. Now, I'm not talking about PhD level understanding of reality. I'm talking about like that there are, in the grand scheme of things, out of 7 billion people on this earth, that you have more experience in something than most people do. If there is that thing out there, then that makes you an expert. I was thinking about it for me. I know that for my area of expertise, so I was in a band for 6 years. We toured, we were on a record label, we recorded, I performed. These are things that I did for 6 years of my life that in the grand scheme of 7 billion people, I am in one of the higher percentages of people, of a smaller percentages of people that have done what I've done. That doesn't mean that I'm the best at it. But what it does mean is when I'm in my own head and I'm writing music and I'm giving myself crap about it because I'm like, dude, you know, what was I? I mean, I'm nothing. Yeah, I was on a record label for a small record company. And yeah, this and this and this. I can like downplay it instead of saying, dude, okay, I have an understanding of music that not everyone does. That means that I can step forward and I can say, I'm going to do this with confidence. And I'm going to do it without questioning things. I'm going to do it the way that an expert would do it. The experts in their field, going back to football, when you've got Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, like the greats, these guys, they throw the football and they throw it with expertise, knowledge, and mindset of understanding, like they know where they want the ball to go. And it usually goes there. But when they miss, because they do, when they throw an interception, a pick six, they aren't staying in their heads. That's what makes them elite. They aren't dwelling on that past episode. They are getting back out there the next time they have possession of the ball, and they're passing again with the understanding that they're going to do a good job at it. That's how we need to be with our understanding of ourselves. So that's as far as I want to take it today. I hope that this helps to maybe break through a couple mindset barriers that maybe you've established for yourself. It's time to take things to a new level for yourself. And if it takes me showing you this, that's the whole point of why I do these vlogs and podcasts. I've been through darkness. That quote at the beginning, that quote was from Jesus. Jesus said that the eye is the lamp of the body. If your vision is clear, your whole body will be full of light. If your eyes are bad, your whole body will be full of darkness. Therefore, take care that the light within you is not darkness. That is in Matthew chapter 6. Go look, read that whole chapter because it's all great, and I can't think of the specific verse. But with that being said, I want to encourage you. I'm not saying that I know everything. I'm not saying that I'm a psychologist, but I will tell you this, another thing that I'm an expert in. I'm an expert in going through the darkness and in beating it, because I spent years, I'm not joking, years in it, and I spent years working my way out of it. I said to myself, I am not staying here. I said to myself, I'm done being in this. I'm going to change some stuff because of the way that I'm looking at life right now, it ain't working. It's not good for me, and I can do better than this. And so I didn't settle until I came out of it. Off of medication, no longer depressed, no longer anxious. I enjoy life. I made myself do these podcasts and these vlogs back over a year ago now as my next step in stepping out of that darkness and saying, I don't care what anybody thinks. I'm going to do this because it's my way of saying I can. You guys each have a way that you can say, I can. I'm here to encourage you. And if I've done any of that, then I've accomplished my mission with this particular episode. All right. Again, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Go to Darren Keim. Go to YouTube, search the name Darren Keim, and find it there. I also have a website. I haven't been promoting it much yet because I'm still working on getting it up and running the way that I want it to just look right. That website is nakedeyemedia.com. And it's spelled with the letter I, naked eye. Who am I when you strip everything away? That's the naked eye, and that's who I'm trying to always make better. But I've got to get real. I've got to break everything away, reset it, remove it, get in an open posture, and take it all in so I can move forward correctly. Thanks, you guys. Until next time, I'm out.